On September the 28th, 2016, a popular brothel in Nigeria called 50/50 was purportedly plagued by a violent spirit that killed 2 people and left 6 others unconscious. According to local reports, terrified residents ran from the building around 8 AM, screaming, "Ghost! Ghost! Ghost!" 2 bodies, 1 male, 1 female, were recovered by police from the building. The 6 others who were found unconscious included the manager of the brothel. The unconscious were all found in different rooms from each other. Later, some of the survivors would claim that they had been attacked by invisible hands. One of the women who survived revealed in a later interview that she had no idea how she ended up in hospital. Speaking to the New Telegraph, she said, "Honestly, I cannot remember what happened. All I can tell you is that I slept in my room as usual. I was alone that night. Then I saw myself here in the hospital." She asserted that she was not under the influence of alcohol on the night of the incident. Just a few weeks before the ghostly attack, several prostitutes who had stayed at the brothel were forced to leave after being hit by unseen hands, which had left one of the women unconscious. Prior to that, there had been reports of beds lifting into the air by a malevolent entity. According to Nigeria's Daily Sun newspaper, local people attribute the violent happenings at the brothel to renovation work that was carried out on the land. With such a growing history of spiritual attacks, this may not be the last time that 50/50 receives a visit from the other side. The following is a tale which has evolved into something of a dark legend. From the late 1930s to the 1950s, a small town in Kentucky was allegedly plagued by the malicious spirit of Carl Pruitt. He had died in June of 1938. A carpenter by day, Pruitt returned home from work to discover his wife in the arms of another man. Upon discovering her infidelity, in a moment of rage, Pruitt grabbed a nearby chain and wrung his wife's neck with it until she lay dead on the ground. Instantly remorseful, Pruitt committed suicide. The family refused to allow him to be buried next to his slain wife, so he was buried alone and disgraced in the town next to where he had lived. From there began a series of horrific deaths that could only be linked back to Carl's curse. One day, a visitor to his grave noticed peculiar circular shadows forming on the surface of the headstone. It looked like a chain was etched into the stone. Before too long, Pruitt's gravesite attracted many with a morbid sense of curiosity. One young boy by the name of James Collins decided to test these strange shadows by throwing a few rocks at the tombstone. On his way home, the unfortunate child slipped from his bike and by some incredible circumstance became tangled in its chain and was strangled to death. The boy's mother was distraught. In a fit of anger and despair, she destroyed Pruitt's tombstone with an axe. Soon afterwards, she was found dead. The clothing line she was using to dry her clothes wound tightly around her neck. Days later, the tombstone was discovered wholly intact, in spite of the damage inflicted upon it by both James and his mother. After this tragedy, at least 2 more people found themselves the victim of Pruitt's ghostly vengeance. One, a farmer, would be found with the reins of his horse-drawn carriage around his neck after taking a few pistol shots at the tombstone. The other, a police officer, died after taking photographs of the gravesite. He had supposedly joked about the ghost and his curse. On the drive home from the cemetery, he crashed his car into a fence. The metal chain which linked 2 of the posts together all but decapitated the officer. It was not until the 1950s, when a strip mining company moved the cemetery and all of the bodies to an undisclosed location, that Carl Pruitt's spirit finally stopped killing. Between the years 1933 and 1963, Alcatraz Island, lying off San Francisco Bay, operated as one of America's most notorious federal prisons. Its conditions were so dreadful that it received the appellation Hellcatraz, the nightmarish reality of all who were unfortunate or guilty enough to have served their time there. The guards selected to work the prison were considered Iron Men by the warden and were known for their cruelty. Beatings were a regular occurrence. Anything, even something as minor as speaking at the wrong time, would result in brutality. Yet their most terrifying device of torture was the hole. This was a cell that lacked most amenities, even light. Prisoners would be thrown inside and left in complete isolation for days at a time. According to some prisoners, however, there lived a darkness in that cell that went beyond sensory deprivation. The hole was believed to be plagued by malicious spirits. One of these phantoms was particularly notorious. It was known as the Thing. In 1940, one prisoner was locked in the hole for the night. It is reported that all throughout the evening his screams were heard by everyone in the prison. However, there was something different about his cries. These were not the usual sounds of a man in solitary confinement. He yelled, wailed, shrieked as though in agony. He cried out that something with red glowing eyes was with him in the hole. The guards purposefully ignored him. The following morning, they found his dead body. His death-laden eyes bulged out from his head. Fear was etched across his bloated purple face. His neck was lined with strange bruising marks. The medical examiner determined that he had died of strangulation, for the marks on his neck had not been self-inflicted. Even stranger still was that whilst his corpse was being examined, he had allegedly been witnessed at morning roll call, after which he vanished into thin air. In early 2013, the town of Thasawang in Thailand reported to have been tormented by a vicious spirit. She was known as the Widow Ghost. The entity claimed the lives of 10 young men. They all died in their prime, with no warning of any prior health complaints. Their deaths were sudden. Some even died whilst they were walking. The official cause of death is respiratory failure. However, what caused this is a mystery. It was when the plague apparently started to affect other nearby towns that a medium came forward. She stated that the widow ghost would not stop until she had taken more lives, and that all young men were in danger, especially those families with only one son. The only way to prevent this was to hang a red shirt outside of your home. This was a dangerous move for anyone to make in Thailand, for red shirts had been the symbol of a coup by the Thai army in 2006. Anyone caught hanging a red shirt outside of their home could be thought of as a political radical. In spite of this, most people in the area hung red shirts outside of their homes. Fear of the murderous widow ghost, it seems, was greater than the fear of political repercussions. Gaurav Tiwari was one of India's foremost paranormal investigators. Having entered the field after sharing a house with a poltergeist whilst training to be a commercial pilot in America, Tiwari was revered for his scientific method and his efforts at educating people about paranormal awareness. His interest and ability eventually led him to found the Indian Paranormal Society. On the 7th of July 2016, Tiwari would conduct his last ever paranormal investigation. Just a few hours after returning from an allegedly haunted house, he passed away. Tiwari's death has been shrouded in mystery ever since his body was discovered with a thin black line around his neck. The initial official explanation was suicide, yet without a plausible motive and a concurring medical report, the case was reclassified as a homicide. Certainly, in suicide cases where death is by hanging, the trachea invariably ruptures. In the case of Tiwari, the black line around his neck had done no such damage. In the months that have followed his sudden death, some have speculated that a vengeful spirit attacked and killed Tiwari. What makes this case all the more mysterious is that, according to the Times of India, Tiwari had confided in his wife only a month prior to his death that a negative force was pulling him towards it. Gaurav Tiwari believed that most paranormal experiences are psychological, but that there is around 1 or 2% that is genuine. Could he have found out that he was all too right, and in doing so, have discovered that some paranormal forces have the power to cause us real harm, or even kill us? If you enjoyed this video, then why not click here or in the description below to watch something else paranormal?